Hi there, I'm Andrew Staggs, and welcome to the Flourishing Life podcast. This is a podcast where I interview leaders and interesting people and talk to them about their journey and about their insights on how they are living the most wonderful life. Welcome again to the Flourishing Life podcast. Thank you so much for your feedback on the episodes that we've done so far. It's certainly been a fantastic journey with some very interesting guests and some powerful conversations. I really love the idea of the flourishing life, that we can live life in such a way that we hit a sweet spot of deep satisfaction. It's like we hit a thermal current and we really are living the life that we're meant to be living. What's fascinating about this biblical concept is that you can even have great joy even in seasons of great pain and deep valleys, as we've seen before. So in this episode, I want to explore the power of coaching. In the last decade of my ministry, I've come to realize how important coaching and mentoring are to moving people to higher levels of satisfaction, performance in the areas that I'm responsible for. So in that time, I've come to appreciate two great people in my network. They've also been involved in mentoring and coaching activities. Our paths have crossed, we've interacted on many times, and we've seen some amazing results with the people that we're working with. So today it's great to have Hourigan and Stacey Trolove with me today. We're here. The planets have aligned and we're in the same building.
We made it happen.
We're people, leaders who make things happen. Yeah. So it's a wonderful season for collaboration for us, and we're working on the same campus some days a week now. We're part of a large leadership and faith-based denomination, and God is doing some really good things in us. So maybe we start with telling us a little bit about yourself, what you've been involved with your extensive ministry so far, just so our listeners can come to appreciate who you are and what you're bringing to the table today.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for bringing me along. Great pleasure. It's been a bit of a many and varied journey for me. In fact, I don't know the exact date, but I think it's 30 years this week that I've actually been involved in full-time ministry. So I never took note of the date, but I know it was around this time of year in 1993. Wow. So in that time, I've pastored churches. I've worked for the denomination of INC. I've done some consulting around church growth, church health, leadership development. Most of my world these days is in that space, helping churches develop healthily, discover what God's got for them, grow into that. And official title within the INC movement is I'm the Director of Church Health. So I spend a lot of time with pastors and leaders around the country, mainly this country, but others as well. And really am privileged and count it a great privilege to be able to work with such great leaders from around the globe.
You've also got a coaching program that offers a certification. So we need to declare our interest right now, don't we?
Transparency.
Isn't it a 30% commission that I get? No,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's right. Part of my journey over the last 25 years has been involved in this area of coaching, not only coaching myself, but then training other coaches. And so we have a process of coaching that was developed by a guy by the name of Bob Logan in America some decades ago, and I'm accredited in that. So I've been probably just about every year for the last 25 years training coaches using that same process.
And I went to your program.
You did?
Back in 2014.
And
same with Stacey.
Yep. Yes.
How about you, Stacey?
So I have been a part of ministry in some sense since I was, I think, 17. Still in school, was just the youth pastor's assistant, and then jumped in and did youth pastoring at that same church before moving to the States, and I got to work with a church over there, which was amazing, awesome experience. Came on back, did a coaching course with Gary, which was a lot of fun. Jumped in and was on staff with a church on the Gold Coast for a year, and have been lecturing at CHC School of Ministries for the last 4 years. So
doing a great job.
And I have a bit of a side ministry called Verve, which aims to just equip and empower tomorrow's church leaders. So whether it's through coaching or courses, we just recently ran a retreat with 12 young adults. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, feel like I got my hands in many pies and loving all of it.
I know, especially all the young women in our world have really appreciated your leadership over a long period of time. You've been a trusted confidant to them,
awesome.
but also a great mentor and coach.
Awesome.
Almost done your master's studies with us.
Almost 1 unit to go.
Just love watching your life flourish along the way. So, what do you both of you? What do you understand coaching to be, and why is it distinctive from any other forms of ministry expression like sort of preaching and teaching? What do you think, Stace?
I think coaching is an invitation to collaborate with someone who might not see what you see. So it's someone who's going to help you recognize and navigate the path forward through hand-holding process, mentoring, supervision. It can take many forms. But I do think it's that trusted person who's going to just help you by helping you navigate the path forward, whatever that looks like, whatever that is, to discern that path together and go there together. So two are better than one, I think, in that instance of coaching.
How about you, Gary?
Yeah, probably pretty similar. I often go back to Ephesians 4, where Paul talks about the fivefold ministry being called to be equippers, essentially. And so I put coaching firmly as one of the dimensions of equipping. I think many of the others sort of we almost like automatically go to, whether it be training, whether it be discipling, whether it be mentoring. Coaching's often a little bit misunderstood, but I put it firmly in that equipping quiver, if you like, as one of the arrows in our quiver. I guess probably the biggest difference, if I wanted to just put it in a nutshell, the difference between maybe a trainer, a teacher, a discipler, a mentor, is the position of a coach. A coach tends to walk beside somebody rather than ahead or over or behind somebody. So it's very much a supportive encouragement. The model of coaching that we use is taken from the ministry of Barnabas, that son of encouragement. So when I coach people, and there can be some complications with this if I am their leader in some other dimension, but as I'm coaching people, I've got to try and take that position. I'm alongside you to help you achieve what you are called to achieve, not necessarily what I want you to achieve. So very much I think the difference is the positioning. The skills, somewhat a little different, but it's mainly that position that a coach has, that walk, the one that walks beside, encourages to help people, walk in the purposes and plans that God has for their lives.
Because a trainer often delivers content, don't they? And so I think when I did some training, you explained to me that coaching assumes that people have the answers within them, and your job is to draw them out. There is in some sessions, you have a brainstorming session when people get stuck around a range of options. And I know I've had to say something like this: do you mind if I take my coaching hat off for a moment? Can we just brainstorm for a sec? And I said, this is what I've seen work with other clients. And people go, oh yeah, that's another thing for me to consider. How do you find that works for you sometimes, in the sense that sometimes it's not a pure coaching role?
Sure. I think, when we actually train coaches, we take a purist view. Life rarely takes a purist view. So there'll be definitely times where I'll do a similar thing, take one hat off, or combine. There's a meshing of the different dimensions. I think that's totally valid. It's understanding, though, when you're doing it, that you are taking that hat off, if you like. And really the biggest distinction for me, say, between mentoring and coaching is when I'm mentoring, I'm giving you what I've got. When I'm coaching, I'm drawing out of you what you've got. And so really the broadness of coaching, therefore, is that technically the coach doesn't have to know the answers. The coach can actually, because it's a journey of discovery. So we believe that God has most of the answers we can find for ourselves or we can discover for ourselves if we're set in the right direction. So it's very much one of the biggest, I guess, learnings I had to do had to go through when I was learning to be a coach, was to allow it to be okay not to have the answer. You know, that whole pressure of leadership, if you got to know everybody's answer for everything. Yeah. On one hand, it released me. I don't have to have the answers if I've got some coaching skills. On the other hand, you still feel that pressure that people come to you for answers. And so
That's a real challenge, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, we live in a telling society, don't we? We go to school and a teacher tells us, and so generally we're an instructing community in the Western world. Eastern civilization tends to draw out, tends to have conversations around things. So it's really just reframing what equipping is and adding some skills of discovery. But when you do see someone discover their way forward, it's a great joy, and there's great power in it.
I love those moments.
But I think it is a little bit different from sports coaching then, isn't it? Because last night I was watching this movie on LeBron, and his coach, had to tell them what to do. Like, here's how you shoot, or here's how you dribble. And it's like, you with your paddling this morning, we were just talking about it. You need a coach to help get you forward through actually that teaching element. So I think that's what I've found quite difficult with coaching. It's like, I don't want to teach you. I want to draw it out of you so you can basically teach yourself to move forward, so you're not becoming reliant on me, versus then a basketball coach who actually does have to do a lot of the teaching and telling in that sense. So.
It's a great point, Stacey, in that we often, particularly in the Western world, when we use the word coach, we think of sport.
Yeah.
Our mind goes to sport. Yeah. And there's definitely elements of it that sort of do cross over what coaching and sports coaching are. But when it comes to, I guess, coaching people, it's almost like if you use like the professional athlete, the coach actually sets the direction for the team. But when the expertise of the players gets to that really high level, the coach probably doesn't have to teach them the skills. They've got the skills.
Yeah.
But if I'm coaching an under-10 team, it's very much, here's how you do the skills. So when it comes to leadership in particular, I think the best environment for coaching is to be involved with people who are already in the game. It's a friend of mine coined a phrase years ago. He said, coaching is really about taking the B grade to A grade. It's not trying to get people to sign up for the game.
That's cool.
That's more discipleship, and that's more your under 10 stuff. Let's teach you how the rules of the game. But now that you're in the game,
that's really cool.
How do we help you increase your capacity in that by being that? I often liken it to, say, a tennis coach, the world number one tennis player. His coach probably doesn't tell him a lot about how to hit a ball anymore, because he can probably hit it better than the coach can. But the coach is making sure he's got the systems in place, the disciplines in place, the structure in place, the encouragement in place to see him excel at what he already knows how to do.
That bit about moving from being a B player to an A grade player, I think that is what I've seen the most challenging thing with coaching. Is sometimes people have the intent to be an A grade player, but actually they don't have the desire. Like, they want to have the desire, but they actually don't. So it's like, in order for them to go from a B grade to an A grade, they can say all the right things, and you just, when you peel away those layers, you recognize actually you don't desire the level of discomfort that it's going to take to become that A grade player. So getting into the heart motivations and level of desire is probably one of another big challenge for coaching, isn't it?
Yeah, I can just see one of our questions is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this to you? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how much passion and determination do you have? I remember having one client, 10 out of 10, I want to do this. How is it important to you to start tomorrow? Oh, probably only a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And they had a massive reality check that their desires and their degree of intentionality was massive, out of sync.
Yeah.
It's one of the one of the dichotomies, I guess, of coaching, in that I said before, it's about encouraging, it's about supporting, it's about walking beside. It sounds like really nice, but it's also about challenging. It's also about having the hard conversations as to what is stopping you being an A-grade player, and how committed are you to go there. And really, at the end of the day, the coaches that I train, I say, if you as the coach are more committed than the coachee, you've got a problem. Your job is to get them where they want to go, not to have to pump their tyres up every 5 minutes to convince them they should go.
That's what's so joy to see the results we get. I come up with the hats thing, because sometimes when I'm talking to people, I realise that people are projecting onto me a particular title. So I'm always conscious of dismantling, because many of us carry the title of, I've written a list here, pastor, mentor, we're trainers, we're lecturers, we're teachers. Some people I'm a confidant to, I'm a spiritual father to, I do some consulting, and I do coaching as well. So sometimes I have a continuum and I ebb and flow between them, with new people, while I'm trying to get the expectations sorted, I'm very clear about the hats and when I'm moving out of one, which is your responsibility, when I'm going to become a content expert. I just love the fact that people are prepared to engage in a trusting environment with another human being. I find that just so courageous
It's
of
very
people,
vulnerable,
and that's why they get the results. Like at the end of a session, sometimes it's their time, it's their space, and you have to gently sometimes close with prayer or close it. We're going to send you back to the real world now.
Yeah.
Because they've opened up their greatest dreams or their greatest fears and have got a greater clarity about the strategies they're going to take to move forward towards their goals.
Yeah, it's a great, as I said, it's a great privilege to be part of people's lives like that. But also too, therefore, there are skills in doing that.
Yeah.
If you can't, one of the skills that a coach has to learn is how to create what we call that safe and courageous space. It's safe here to talk about whatever you want to talk about. There's confidentiality in the whole thing, but also there's that courageous space. It's okay to dream. How can we? Our job is to make your dreams a reality, but this is okay to do. But so there's intentional time needs to be spent in building that relationship so that it is that safe place to move forward from.
Get the result. How did you get, Stacey? How did you get into coaching?
Well, I guess formally it was doing the course through INC because I was a part of an INC church. I was on staff with an INC church. So that's formally. But I think informally coaching is just a very big part of ministry, even not as a carrying the formal title of coach. So I would say, as a youth pastor, as a 19-year-old coaching the younger youth leaders on, hey, here's how you can preach a message and here's how you can show up on a Friday and set up and be a leader. And in that very informal role of coaching, I think was just instilled in me from my youth pastors, and here's how you develop those around you. So yeah, I think it would have been early days in ministry, just learning the principles of coaching and mentoring and teaching and developing others.
Yeah. I was on a period of long service leave. And I was thinking about what my next was. And I was getting advice from people in my network, and I knew I had a lot of experience, but I wanted to take another level. And someone said, you got to go see Gary Hourigan. He'll know what to do. And I remember we had a lunch together, Gary. It was powerful, and you told me about the course and what I could achieve. And then I signed up, and my coach that was assigned to me, he said, what are your goals? And I said, I want you to coach me on how to build a coaching practice. So it was a wonderful season of reflection for me. And I just wish I did it sort of early 40s. I wish I had done it earlier. Like, it just made me a much of a better leader. It's almost like I felt like the veil had been taken away and the lights had come on. It's become one of the most essential tools in my ministry toolkit. And I know this, it's made me a much better listener. And like Jesus, I realized Jesus was the master of asking questions.
Yeah.
And that rabbinical style, he'd answer a question with a question. And I began to have a massive collection. I'd start to collect questions because I realized questions are a game changer. Like, you can't even have a morning tea with you, Stacey, without asking great questions. And I'm thinking, no small talk. No small talk with you.
Yeah. That's great. Cultivating curiosity, I think.
It's interesting when three coaches get together because all you do is ask questions.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question, Gary. What sort of areas, content areas, are you involved with coaching? You mentioned sort of you've done some transition church coaching, getting leaders into their next phase, giving them clarity around that. What sort of areas pop up that people come and see you about? And then we'll go to Stacey.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate what Stacey said there before about doing it informally and then learning to do it formally. And I think everybody can coach, but I do think everybody can learn some disciplines in the whole thing as well. For me, I would say I was doing it rather as an extension of just who I was, but then learning more about the skills and the processes of it, you actually just become better at it. So when we actually train coaches, we train them in what we call general coaching, so just generally helping people. But what I find then, and for my life, is coaches will often want to, in some way, specialise. And because my world is church and leadership development, then I couple my coaching with a lot of resources around those areas. Church health resources, leadership development resources, personal inventories that help people discover more about themselves, become more self-aware. They're really just using tools to give us a little bit of a picture of where a person might be at, a church might be at, a person might be at, and then we can do the coaching to help them move forward. So much, all of those areas, leadership development, church development, whatever it might be, I was always involved with. But now I do it from a coaching perspective. And I say, well, what are the tools and resources? See, part of coaching, whether it's on a personal one-on-one, whether it's a team, one of the first things you got to do is establish where they're at. So therefore, I will use things like profiles, like personality profiles, like behavioural assessments, like competency assessments to actually help a person find out where they really are, and then I can help them move forward. So that's probably my area of, I would say, passion and specialty, is anything to do with that leadership, come church health development, church planting world is,
very cool. I'm early days with this, so I feel like I'm sitting with two legends. So,
You undersell yourself.
well, I think, I've
People
only been
beat a path to your door.
at this present moment. The things that I've been coaching in would be leadership and public communication, and then just personal people who are struggling with, ongoing sin, that are just like, hey, I need help getting out of this. A very practical, like spiritual formation, coaching relationship in an informal way rather. Has probably been where I've been experiencing coaching the last 12 to 24 months. So, yeah.
I had a guy, he said, "Can you coach me to be a great dad?"
Yeah, I love that.
That was awesome. It was very emotional.
Yeah.
And he listed out all these barriers and realised some of that was related to generational stuff he'd inherited, and he wanted to chart a new course for his family.
That's wonderful.
I really rated and respected that man. And what he's doing now today with his family is awesome. Had a young guy, coached him to get a wife. Oh,
wow.
he did.
Did he get one at the end of it?
Oh, mate, I can't disclose, but he's doing really, really well.
That's great.
Church planners, but people who hit a blockage in a life, they're ready for a transition, they're trying to discern the will of God. I had this amazing season where I picked up 4 high net worth clients, no advertising. They were just in the early morning prayer, hands in their head, did not know where to go. God, I need help, and my face appeared. And I just realised there was a sovereign, and they needed wisdom, and they just needed a safe place to unpack their very complex financial, emotional, relational world to chart a course. And really all I did was listen and listen well and ask a series of questions, and they came up with their own action plan.
Great.
Now, and I just couldn't believe the sovereignty around that. Professional people come moving to the next level. I helped one person, they wanted to know around how to strengthen a particular business area of their profession, and they've consistently beaten their targets by 20% every year. I reckon I should have gone on a 1% trail. What I should do is sign up for a trail. Anyway,
it's interesting, Andrew, you use the word sovereignty, and particularly in the coaching model we use, the very foundation is coaching is God's territory. God is at work. All we're really doing is cooperating with the Holy Spirit as he works in the coachee and the coach to find the way forward. So quite often for me, coaching is about discovering God's will and God's way forward. So when you find it,
that's great.
The power of it, it's not just good ideas for what somebody could do. It's actually we are facilitating the work of the Holy Spirit in a person's life.
Wow.
And number one, the joy that comes with that is incredible.
Isn't it great to be used? Like I've had a rhema, like I got a word of knowledge come, and I just used one time. I had a guy and he's in just a really dark place, and I used a question that my coach used on me, and it was at the right moment. I pitched it. I said, "Young man, how is this pain part of God's grander, more perfect will for your life?" And it was like. And then I sort of 5 minutes later closed the session. I went off to another meeting. I get a text message 1 hour later. He said, "I've just left your office. I'm still sitting in the car park. God has smashed me and I can't stop crying."
Wow.
But it was the key to unlocking that all I did was give sovereignly his pain some perspective. And God was all over. And that was a major turning point. I said, I can't believe I get used by God to help people like that.
That's the richness of it for me. And you know, we often say that we're not there as coaches to tell. But in reality, we've often got good experience in what they're trying to learn. So you resist. But I often say this, I enjoy the experiences I most enjoy in coaching is when I haven't got a clue what the coach should do. And then God turns up with some discovery about a way forward. And, you know, obviously the person you're coaching is giving you all the accolades and you just know full well that God has done something here beyond what you could even do on your best day. So, you know, that for me is just rich.
Yeah. Stacey, have you seen people grow or reach their goals through coaching that they probably wouldn't have got there on their own?
I think coaching provides accountability. That's what I've sensed, that it's the biggest thing that we can offer people is that accountability. And this morning I had a text from a young woman who said, "It's done, I did it." And it was a thing that we'd been talking about for a while that she needed to do, that she just kept procrastinating and prolonging. And I got that text at maybe 7 this morning and I just celebrated. I didn't have anything to do with it. I wasn't up praying for her this morning or messaging or calling her. It was just that partnership through accountability that she needed in order to take the step that she knew she needed to take, but actually it was just that accountability to help get there. So I don't know if that answers the question,
that's a great thing. How
that
about
was a
you,
recent
Gary?
example.
What was the question?
Have you seen coaching help people grow and reach their goals that they probably might not have got there on their own as fast?
Yeah, well, there's lots. I'm one of them. One of the things I say, sort of tongue-in-cheek, is there are two people in this world I can't coach. Well, there's probably one I could, but she doesn't let me. And the other one is myself.
Yeah.
Because as Stacey said, we're there to help people stay accountable, to challenge them, to help them move forward. Well, I need that in my life as much as anybody else. So even just when I started on this whole journey of church health, church planting, church multiplication, if without a coach, I would not be here. It was a difficult journey, and just to have him in my world, to give me a kick when I needed it, to give me encouragement when I needed it, to keep on walking towards the journey. You know, it was. Yeah. See, to me, coaching is really a journey in change. If doing what I've done so far has got me to where I am, but it won't get me to the next step. So therefore, something's got to change. My mindsets have got to change. My habit patterns have got to change. My worldview's got to change. My skill levels have got to change. And so when we use the word change like it just comes off our tongue rather easily, but I found change is a very, very difficult thing to navigate. And the size of the change, depending on the size of the change, how difficult that is. So so number one would be me. But people I've coached, interestingly and timely, I asked a guy that I'm actually currently coaching to give me a little bit of some feedback on the experience he's had. So I'll read it to you if you like, because I just brought it. He's a guy that I'm coaching.
This is one you'd prepared earlier. You didn't use ChatGPT or
no, I didn't. He's a very good friend of mine. I've actually got a session with him tomorrow night. He says when the UK went into its first COVID-19 lockdown in early 2020. We engaged Gary Hourigan, who had trained us as coaches some years earlier. I'd sort of been over to England and done some of that stuff. We have witnessed the impact. Having witnessed the impact of my own coaching in the lives of our church leaders, we look forward to being coached ourselves. The coaching agenda focused on breaking the 120 barrier in terms of Sunday attendance, which we had hoped to achieve upon emerging from lockdown. The main barriers to achieving this goal were internal in our thinking. We needed a change of paradigm, especially in terms of how we provided primary pastoral care. Gary helped us transition from a shepherding model to a rancher model over the long months of lockdowns. Monthly coaching sessions really helped us to adapt and retain this new paradigm. And as we ourselves set the agenda and the action plans from each session, we were highly motivated. With a new mindset and expanded cell group structure in place, we emerged from the final lockdown in July 21. In the months following, the church Sunday attendance grew and consistently broke the 120 barrier. Having achieved our initial goal, we decided to retain Gary's coaching services on a monthly basis to help us maintain the growth curve. The church has continued on its growth trajectory and attendance, and is currently averaging 160 plus. Our current coaching agenda is the 200 barrier.
Great.
So that's just a current one for me over the last few years. And to be honest, I sit here and I read that and I think they did all the work. I just helped guide the process, got them to do a lot of investigative stuff, reading stuff, challenging the old paradigms of how they thought church might work. And here we sit, people coming to Christ, church growing, new leaders, and you think, wow, maybe this does work.
I reckon it's about the
Maybe.
structure. I like what you said before, Stacey. I agree with you. Like, accountability is one of the biggest benefits that come with coaching. I think that's why it works. Like, we're in higher education and people sometimes go blah, blah, blah about assignments, but assignments is the number one growth accelerator because you've got a due date, you've got a set of instructions to follow. You would never get round to writing something epic that's vital for your ministry unless somebody forced you and chased you up. And that's how I see that in our world. But I love that thing about accountability. That's the bit that nailed me when I started doing coaching and I got a coach. When we're doing one of your training exercises and there's this really quiet young Asian girl, barely 17. She hadn't said anything the whole time and you made us get in little groups and practice the questions. And she asked me in this really, really quiet voice, she goes, Andrew, what's the last thing that God has asked you to do that you have not done?
Yeah, wow.
And it went really quiet. And this is where we know as coaches, when you pitched a really good question, it's the gap between you when you finish talking and they start talking, that processing time, the longer that is, you know you've asked a good question. And I thought, and I knew what it was, God had asked me to do a 10-day water fast, all right, preparing for my next season. So I gave the answer, and her follow-up question is this, so why haven't you done it then?
Wow.
And I sat there and I felt like instant conviction came upon me. It was me who was blocking the trajectory of my destiny. And I realized I'm just good at telling excuses to myself. And it was just like a window to my soul. And then she said, so what do you think you might do now? And I remember leaving the car park. I drove straight home.
Wow.
And I knew what I had to do. I did some research fasting, what type I was going to do, and I started at 6 a.m. the next morning.
Wow.
I didn't have formal agreement, but it was that powerful.
That's
I had a
great.
massive self-awareness moment. Then in regards, I was lying to myself about my destiny because I had no intention to do that. It was too long between when God speaks to me and I'm obedient.
Yeah.
You just look at that as a powerful framework, which seems very, three very innocuous questions. What's God said?
That I haven't done.
What's God said that you haven't done? What's stopping you? What are you going to do now?
Yeah.
And I'm in your world to walk beside you while you do it.
Yeah.
It's just
That's great.
nutshell.
How about for yourself? What did you learn about yourself during your sort of coaching training days?
For me, it was an awareness that wherever I wanted to be, wherever I sensed that God agenda for my life, there were very practical steps that I could take to get there. It was as simple as breaking it down of like, I'm talking to all these people and they've all got these grand plans for their lives and I can help them get there. But the same is true for me, that what I sense God is speaking to me or where he's calling me to go, it's not a faraway place, that I can action those things and put myself on that trajectory starting today. If I'm disciplined to take those steps and to work with coaches and have accountability, I can very well get to where God is calling me to be. Without waiting for him to drop it from the sky or lift me up and transport me and plop me somewhere else. No, I'm actually responsible and capable of taking those steps myself. So through that self-awareness and self-motivation and initiation, I'm actually able to align with God and partner with God in walking out that trajectory and that calling on my life. So it probably, allowed me to sweep those excuses away and say, no more excuses. Coaching doesn't give you excuses. It just gives you tools to keep going. So.
Yeah. Now, speaking about tools, Gary, you mentioned you use assessments. For me, a massive aha moment for me was when my coach used one of your Harrison assessment tools, and it identified in the area of my self-concept. What's that good on the paradox?
Self-acceptance.
Self-acceptance. I rated really low.
Yep.
And I argued with my coach for 4 sessions. I said, I'm good. I'm a confident guy and all. And finally, through his coaching and the power of Holy Spirit, I identified a wound that I had in my heart that I went and got some prayer counselling for. And literally, it just opened up a new area of flourishing in my life. And it was an area that was quite dead. It was about my birthday. Wow. And how my birthday was celebrated. And it came back, but it was the forensic precision of your paradox. So you found this as a common challenge area for pastors, haven't you? You want to talk to us about that sort of self-acceptance thing and what you're finding? Because I'm not alone, am I?
No, you're not alone. This resource you talk about is an instrument called a Harrison assessment. It's not a spiritual assessment per se. It's a talent resource that helps people put the right talent in the right place, and then looks at how we're made up. It actually, believe it or not, identifies 175 different traits that a person may or may not have, without any judgment on them, good or bad. But the challenge is to find out that in my makeup, what is helping me and what is hindering me. So one of these particular traits, and again, common in people in ministry, more so than those not that I've noticed, and I'm in a bit of a crusade to find out why. But there's a combination, and again, the impact of the combinations of these traits. And this self-acceptance one is I'm okay with who I am, essentially. I like myself. Alarmingly, you see many people in the ministry real low on that, which is really, really incredible when God loves us so much that we actually wrestle with that. But the paradoxical trait, and I won't go into explaining all about paradoxes, but the other one is self-improvement. So what we have generally, but we tend to see that people in our world have a very high desire to improve, self-improvement, but tend to have a lower self-acceptance trait. So those two combined, we tend to live in a self-critical zone, right? So if I'm really self-accepting and have no self-improvement, I'm very defensive. You can't tell me anything because I'm okay with the way I am. But we see it more the other way. So people who live, you just think about if a person's going through life whose normal range of behaviour would be self-critical, then even when they do achieve, it's not good enough. They're on this cycle of I've got to be better, I've got to be better, I've got to be better. They can't stop and celebrate their successes. They can then get defensive because if something does go wrong, they're already beating themselves up so much that they don't want anybody else to come and do it. It really has a major impact. And so if we can help people improve or develop that self-acceptance trait, and at the same time continue to self-improve, then you've got people who are okay with who they are. They got a great sense of identity, but they've also got a clear development path for themselves as well.
Great.
It's a major one, that one. It really is. The one, and again, like you said, it's got to be a bit of a revelation. Why do we not accept ourselves?
I think that's a big gift that coaching gives you is self-awareness. Whether it's self-acceptance or anything else, it's the self-awareness that you don't see unless you're willing to sit down and work through some of these tools and resources. Yeah. You just think, I'm smooth sailing, and then you do a 30-minute thing and you're like, oh my gosh, my life's falling apart. Like, I didn't know these things about myself.
Yeah, I just debriefed a guy on his Harrison a couple of days ago, a guy looking at church planting. And I went through a group of these paradoxes and he was, wow. Yeah. Now I know why I do that.
Yeah.
So the self-awareness is... He sort of probably even hadn't examined what he did, probably knew that there were some hindering behaviours that were habit patterns, but then the self-awareness, now I know why I do that. And now we can start to put some development in place to help him reframe it, get his head around it, put some action steps in place. And
it's helpful not just for ministry, but for all life, like your marriage. I'm seeing these things of how it operate in ministry, and through the Harrison assessment, I'm like, these things are also now in my marriage or in my friendships, and it's good to just whittle those down and identify what you need to really work with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm hearing accountability and self-awareness.
Yeah, totally.
I reckon they're gifts you can give yourself. Yeah. You want to move towards becoming the person that God is calling you to become even more.
Yeah.
Interesting that agree total. Well, you can give your gift yourself, but some of these things are so entrenched, like self-acceptance. And again, I guess one of the reasons I'm probably passionate about it is because it was one of my low ones, really low ones.
Yeah.
And when I reflect on my life, I totally understand why. Breaking out of it on my own was a different story. I could discover it, but I needed some help for people. I needed a coach to help correct me when I was self-critical, when I wouldn't celebrate successes that I might have had, when I downplayed, a typical one of the questions I ask people when they've got low self-acceptance. I don't think so. I said, what do you do when people celebrate you? They said, I don't like it. There's classic. I can't handle praise. Or they deflect it to someone else or something, and it's just it's learned behaviour over a long period of time, and you can't just unlearn that in 5 minutes.
So good.
Yeah.
I don't remember what my self-acceptance one was. I just remember I was high driving, low empathy, and I was like, great, no one's going to want to be on my team ever.
Yeah, that would be high enforcing. You keep the rules.
High enforcing. I'm grateful.
But looking after people along the way.
Grateful for the self-awareness of that tool.
Explains the roadkill behind it. Doesn't it? I just find I'm a better person now.
Yeah,
I'm a better person to be around. I walk slower through the crowd.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a wonderful.
Sure.
That's why I wish I had done it earlier. But anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, especially like a final thought about coaching. Like where you're heading now. What are you working on now? What are you still passionate about? What's your piece of secret sauce or a great piece of advice?
Look, for me, I think whilst I said before this coaching is modelled off the life of Barnabas, and if you go back into the book of Acts, not everybody believed in Paul. So the disciples gave him to Barnabas and said, here, try, what can you make of this guy? Or how can you help this guy go forward? And the rest is history. Jesus is the same, the way he poured himself into people. So for me, it's how do I help, not only how do those I coach, but how do I develop other people to be able to coach? The more we can multiply coaches for all dimensions of life and ministry, then the more impact we're going to have on the world around about us, the lives around about us. So, for some reason, God's called me into this equipping type space, and so that's what I feel even recently, even some more self-awareness or rediscovery about at my age. I've got to probably refine where I'm working so that I can see more and more people acquire these skills to help more and more people.
We're so thankful for the strength that you've brought into our denomination because of this. We've done a lot of ministry and the focus that we have and the increasing strength, because I know we want to strengthen pastoral supervision. We're sort of thinking about that as another next step, another layer of support and accountability. I think it's just wonderful, Gary. I know I've benefited significantly from our chats and my coaching stream, and other people as a result from that.
Thanks very much.
But you, Stace, what are you working on? A final thought?
I think I'm feeling convicted around creating spaces for formation. So whether that's, lecturing or, running retreats or just coaching, I do sense that there is somewhat in ministry, there can be an air of arrogance, and we think, I've gotten this far, or, I'm already at the peak of my game, and pride comes before a fall. And seeing firsthand the fall of leaders around us in the last decade, I just want to encourage, especially younger leaders, to always put yourself in spaces of formation for as long as you live, because that's where humility comes, that's where God continues to shape us into the image of Christ, and that's where we get the accountability, the self-awareness, and all the tools that we need to carry on in this calling that He's given us. So I want to dedicate my life to creating space for people to be formed, whether that's through coaching or other ways. But
powerful.
And that just want to encourage you in that, Stacey, because what coaching does, it takes people out of the pressure of their world, working in their world, to work on their world.
Yeah,
so
that's
really
great.
It is. That's one of the challenges with coaching, because I say it's really urgent. You'll probably get by the next month without a coach, but you may be in the same position next year if you don't do something about it. So how do we create?
But often everyone you're
space?
leading knows it too. They've known you hit a plateau, and they're often saying, come on, we need some change.
Yeah.
I was only writing something on the weekend, Jethro and I were listening to a podcast, and John Bevere was quoting a study, and I went and found it. It's by Dr. Robert Clinton, who wrote that great book, The Making of a Leader. He analysed 1,000 leaders in the Bible, and he said that he had a real passion around longevity in ministry and those who finished well. He said only 25% actually finish well. And he come up with 5 keys, but number one is the leader, you have to be committed to lifelong learning and improvement. You can't let your inner world or your mind get lethargic or stale. We need to be on. So coaching could help some people with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. So next steps for people, like they can all see you guys on social media if they're looking for a coach. Like they think, I'm so inspired, I want to get, so they can reach you. What do people want to do if they want to do some training, Gary?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. Like there are some books you could start to read just to get a little bit more of a grasp on what coaching is.
And, that's one.
And what it's not.
How about this one?
Coaching 101, Bob Logan, the guy that
I love
actually
this book.
developed the...
Yeah.
Yeah, well, every time I train someone, I have to go back and refresh myself on that book, and it's a simple book, but it's pretty profound. So that would be the start. And then if you're interested in actually being trained, just contact us, and we can let you know when we're running a next intake of coaches to train, and see what God does with you there. Like Stacey said before, you may well find, wow, I've been doing this anyway, but I find that building some process and some competency around, or skills around that, adding to what you're already doing, you'll probably find the results are multiplied quite, exponentially, really.
I've been able to monetize mine, so I'm sort of thinking 70s and 80s, that'd be great cash flow, like on the side. Like people are prepared to invest in good self-development time. For many, it's a tax deduction as well.
I think we're getting there with that. When I started 25 years ago, convincing people that they needed a coach was in the ministry world was rather an uphill battle. And it was something they felt, well, I can't afford it. And again, for us, it's not a money-driven thing, but I often say, well, show me your profit and loss, and I'll show you where you might be able to use that money you're spending somewhere else that might have better effect in a coaching or a mentoring relationship of some sort.
I just think it's wonderful. I think I love people. I think they're smart enough. They'll get there eventually. Yeah. I reckon a good coach will just get you quicker. Yeah. So often when people come to me, they're actually buying speed. They're buying speed and they're buying wisdom.
You're a speed dealer.
Sorry?
Sounds like you're a bit of a speed dealer. They're buying speed.
They're buying
come
speed.
To me. Whoa,
yeah,
whoa,
they're
whoa.
just. I think you'll get there. You'll get there quicker. I'll just get you there quicker together.
I see what you're saying.
Together.
I hope people start at the front end of this podcast.
See what I got to work with.
I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you.
I just think it builds stronger denomination. I know in our ministry college here, School of Ministries, like we have practicums and we're going on a blitz at the moment. That's why we're working with Gary and his course. We're wanting to develop better skilled supervisors with a coaching mindset to drive through the part of reflective practice. It's one thing to do ministry, but it's another thing to stand back and reflect on what you're doing, especially too in pain. Like, what's God doing in your life while you're experiencing this pain and doing ministry? Because I've come to realise ministry is often about what God's doing in me, not the results that I'm getting or the perceived success by leading an organisation and area of responsibility. God just wants to keep doing deep work in us to make us more like him.
True. Yeah.
Wonderful. I really enjoyed our time together.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us on The Flourishing Life.
I've enjoyed the chat. Thank you.
God bless you both. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Flourishing Life. If you liked what you heard, please write me a comment, send me a message, or share it with a friend or colleague. God bless you.